Real Chat Episode 18, Dr. No.
I admire your luck, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
When you carry a 00 number, it means you're licensed to kill, not get killed.
Welcome to Jamaica, Mr. Bond. News of my arrival leaked. Who are you working for? We didn't advertise it. What else do we know about this Chinese gentleman? Nothing except his name, Dr. No. I'm a member of Spectre. World domination. Same old dream. Why is he still alive?
Our attempts failed.
We're not going to fail again. I thought you'd turn up sooner or later.
Very clever, Mr. Bond.
It's a Smith & Wesson, and you've had your 6.
What are you doing here? Looking for shells?
No, I'm just looking. I thought there might even be a place for you with Spectre. Well, I'm flattered. I prefer the Revenge Department. I never fail, Mr. Bond.
Everybody, welcome to episode 18 of Real Chat, a podcast that promises week in, week out, the real world as we know it. Today we're looking at the first chapter of what is probably the longest continually running film series in history, having been in ongoing production from 1962 to the present day. British film production company Eon Productions has produced 23 films as part of this series, with a combined gross of over $6,000 million to date. The films produced by Eon constitute the third highest grossing film series behind the Harry Potter and Marvel Cinematic Universe films. Accounting for the effects of inflation, these films are part of the highest grossing series ever, amassing over $13,000 million at 2015 prices. Bond fans rejoice. Today, Real Chat is retrospectively reviewing the very first James Bond movie, 1962's Dr. No. My name is Adam Stolfo, and I'm joined, as usual, by co-host Brose Avard. What is your favourite Bond movie, Brose?
Wow, I have no idea. Bond movies for me are just a part of the landscape, and so I don't even know which ones I've seen or I haven't seen. So, I mean, I enjoyed the hell out of Dr. No. Skyfall really blew my mind recently, but yeah, they're great.
And a big welcome to Mr. Andrew McCaskill. Andrew, how you doing?
Yeah, very well.
Favourite Bond movie?
Yeah, I think From Russia with Love would be right up there. I think it's just a really classic Bond film. It gets everything right. It's just got great villains in it, great gadgets. All the best elements of Bond are in that film.
And a very special welcome back to Mr. Matthew O'Neill. Matt, how you doing?
Do you expect me to talk? Sorry. I'm sorry. And I've been holding on to that for 5 months since fantastic. I was last here.
Yeah, your last episode with us, Matt, was episode 5, American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
It's been some time.
You didn't do a very good job, so that's why...
You guys have been busy.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to us while you've been overseas, been listening to our podcast on the plane.
You did Star Wars. You found positive things to say about science, although I'm still waiting for a twist at the end of the season on that one. I reckon something's going on there. One. Yeah, that was crazy. Well done.
So, firstly, Matt, do you have a favourite Bond film?
I do. Actually, that line I just spoke, which was James Bond, is Goldfinger.
Oh, Goldfinger.
It's always been Goldfinger. Yeah.
Good one. Gentlemen, do you have a favourite James Bond?
You know what? I'm going to say Roger Moore.
Oh,
okay. Yep. Bruce?
I don't know. Connery is so convincing. There wouldn't have been a James Bond without Connery. He brings the perfect balance of humour. His charisma's amazing. He's incredibly good looking in these films. And he's believable. He's a fit guy. I don't know. Roger Moore, I understand. Roger Moore brings a lot more pathos, I think, and he's a bit heavier and like a little more weighty in his performance. But
the first Bond film you see as well, I guess, also speaks to that too, because from there on in, you just kind of picture him as Roger Moore. I mean, I love Sean Connery as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the feeling this is the closest we'll get to doing Zardos.
Probably yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go.
We're going to be honest.
So that's cool as well. But yeah.
And Andrew, favourite Bond?
Yeah, Connery all the way.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Like the first Bond you see pretty much just sets it in stone for you. But yeah, he nails that role.
We see it right here in Dr. No as well. Like he's from the very first scene. Actually, he is just Bond, and I don't think that it was ever bettered personally, in my opinion.
The other great thing about Connery in this film, it's nice to watch Connery acting. You know that thing that happens to actors in the last 20 years or 30 years of their career where they just kind of show up? It's like, I'm Sean Connery, so I'm just going to do this and you're just going to film me. Whereas in this film, he's chewing the scenery, he's having a great time, he's being very playful. You know, he's really acting in this. He's really holding the scenes.
This is the very first episode of our 50-plus years of Bond retrospective series, a conscious effort to look at the amazing cinematic history of the James Bond franchise. And yes, just quickly, this is the very first big screen adaptation featuring the legendary 007 James Bond character, and Sean Connery is indeed the first to embody the character. However, for the purists out there, in 1954, there was a live television presentation of Climax Casino Royale in which Barry Nelson starred as an American agent, Jimmy Bond. Dr. No is a tremendously entertaining film. You can watch in a variety of ways, as a throwback to the 60s spy genre, and as a cultural snapshot of the sexism and freewheeling attitude of the early 60s. Bond is the ultimate man's man. He kills the bad guys with suave efficiency, woos the ladies with ease, and manages to redefine cool in just about every scene. Many of the iconic aspects of a typical James Bond film were established here in Dr. No. The film begins with an introduction to the character through the view of a gun barrel and a slightly stylized main title sequence, and production designer Ken Adam established an elaborate visual style that is also one of the hallmarks of the Bond film series. Everybody knows Bond.
Absolutely. It's permeated the culture. It's interesting, this film, because it does, like, one of the things that really surprised me is it's not a Bond film yet. It's still just a spy film. And obviously they take this film and then build the Bond franchise from it. But some of the things I really enjoyed about this film was it's got a real Hitchcock feel to it. The M character is based off a Hitchcock character from Secret Agent, and visually it kind of, you know, with the rear projected screens behind the cars and some of the action sequences and the way it's shot, it kind of feels a bit light Hitchcock or something. Like it has got that kind of that vibe, but it still has that very 60s spy feel to it as well. It's got that English spy feel to it, which I really enjoy. So it's not as heavy in the Bond tropes yet. It's not using, you know, gadgets aren't at the fore yet, and the cars aren't at the fore yet. The cars are all incidental in this film, as opposed to later on. So yeah, I like the genre elements of this film before it becomes its own genre.
Yeah, I think it really plays well as a double with From Russia with Love, and they both definitely set like the benchmark for espionage films going forward. I mean, even Austin Powers is basically based on those two films combined, like everything, you know, going through getting the radiation washed off of them and stuff like that. That all appears in the film. Even Dr. No saying $1 million for the for the aquarium.
Absolutely, it's all set up here, and because I'd never actually seen Dr. No until watching it for this podcast as well. So, in having seen all the Austin Powers and a lot of the movies that take this off, I could start to pinpoint every single little bit where we're like, oh yeah, okay, so that's a...
Have you seen From Russia with Love as well? Yeah.
Well, there's that. I mean, Bond fans were saying that at the time about Austin Powers as well. Like, everyone's losing their gut over Austin Powers, and very serious Bond fans standing at the back of the cinema going, well, that's just From Russia with Love, and that's Dr. No. There's nothing clever here. It's like, yeah, it is. It's hilarious, so shut your mouths.
It's really easy to chuckle at the projected backgrounds that you mentioned, Brose, and all the driving scenes and the, you know, the silly special effects, particularly the giant fish in Dr. No's underwater lair as well.
When I'm watching it, there's the line in there about Dr. No explains why they're magnified, and it's because how thick the glass is.
Yeah.
But the real reason they're magnified is that's the only stock footage they could find of fish, which was from Disney, and it's magnified fish, and the loop was too short, so when they were doing the reverse shots of Dr. No standing in front of the aquarium, the footage would stop mid-sentence while he was delivering his lines.
And apparently they didn't have that until one day before
the shooting.
That scene as well. So it was all rushed and put together very quickly.
And you can always tell a line like,
A unique feat of engineering, if I may say so. I designed it myself. The glass is convex, 10 inches thick, which accounts for the magnifying effect.
bullshit. You like
any questions?
Let's solve that problem next.
But for me, like all of this stuff adds to the charm of the film.
This is a low-budget film. Bond films are now big budget, big deal, big blockbuster films. This was under $1 million or just on $1 million to make this film. And they talk about it in the commentary quite a bit, how, you know, the production designer said, I did this set and I only had, like one of the sets, he only had $4,000 or something left to do the whole set. So he just did what he could. Like it's got that real independent film kind of feel to it when you hear the people involved with making it talking about, you know, we borrowed all of this stuff and then a lot of it shot on location to cut costs as well. And it's quite incredible.
Yeah, Dr. No's always been one of my kind of, not one I would go to often because it was just a bit dry and it didn't have all those tropes that you love in the Bond films. So I haven't really seen it for years, but for that reason, I really enjoyed seeing it again, because it's just it kind of reinvigorates makes the character great. It's just the intrigue of the character is there in that film, and the simplicity of him, and he's just a fascinating character, and he's really showcased in this film.
Yeah, definitely.
Isn't it interesting too? This is launching a franchise, this film. How refreshing is it not to have an origin story in the first film in a franchise? Like, there's so much mystery and intrigue about this character, and they just let it play.
Yeah.
Like, even the way he's introduced, which is a magnificent shot.
He's already established. Like, when this film starts. It's almost like Bond,
exactly.
Bond could have already been on 50 adventures.
Dr. No comes after From Russia with Love in the book series, and the gun jamming is actually out of From Russia with Love. So they're referring to a case that had already happened, which is actually then from a...
It's a happy accident, though, as well, because they didn't have the rights to Casino Royale because of that TV show. So they did want to do Casino Royale, but they couldn't.
Which is the first book?
Which is the first book, that's right. And as a result, like, every Bond film just kind of starts in the middle of something. You know, like, it doesn't really ever carry on, apart from a couple of films from the last Bond film. It just kind of moves along. It's just its own thing.
How, like, you don't see, he's not in the first scene of the film. There's like several scenes with all these random characters, and then he's mentioned, and then there's the introduction. You just see his arm in the corner of the frame, and just that slow build to revealing, and then that great reveal shot where it's just him with a cigarette and introducing himself. It's just classic.
Dr. No is an Eon Productions release. With a quick note here as well, a number of Hollywood film studios did not want to fund the film, finding them too British and too blatantly sexual. It was released on the 5th of October 1962 in the UK and the 8th of May 1963 in the US, and it was shot primarily in Jamaica and England in the UK, with a budget of an estimated 1.1 million, and it grossed 59.6 million worldwide.
I wonder, like, what was it that really connected with everyone? Like, what made it such a massive success?
I think the character of Bond.
Just, the intrigue of a spy.
And the charisma of Connery as well, and it was a big risk. The producers for this film there was no guarantee it was going to be a success. And even when you watch this film now, it's hard to fathom what made this film a massive success as well. Like, you know, like, it's just a really nice film.
There's
like,
no big set pieces or anything.
No,
like
I guess it was just the time, though, as well, that Britain, for whatever reason, was on the up. I mean, this was 62, so 63 the Beatles came out. Before that, you had Hammer Horror taking over cinema, or just film in general, and apparently saving Hollywood with Horror of Dracula, and that was in 58. So Britain in general, the actors with, like, Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, and then, here's another one with Sean Connery. They were just producing some excellent stuff and changing the face of cinema at that time. I think that was just another factor in pushing Bond along.
This film was directed by Terence Young. So he's a British film director and screenwriter, best known for directing 3 Bond films, Dr. No, From Russia with Love, and Thunderball. Young had previously worked 5 years earlier with the then relatively unknown Sean Connery on a film called Action of the Tiger, something I've never heard of before. For the first Bond film, Miss Moneypenny herself, Lois Maxwell, claimed that Terence took Sean under his wing. He took him to dinner, showed him how to walk, how to talk, even how to eat. Young imposed many stylistic choices for the character, which continued throughout the film series. Young also decided to inject much humour, as he considered that the sex and violence and so on, if played straight, would A, be objectionable, and B, we're never going to go past the censors, but the moment you take the Mickey out, it seems to disarm. I thought that was a very interesting point, because I think he's absolutely right.
Well, that's the key, really, to the success of the character, is the charm versus the cold-blooded killer.
Yeah.
It makes him such a fascinating character full of depth.
Yeah, and at this point in cinema, the censor was, going through scripts with a red pen and crossing out a lot, and on set, and then in the edit room as well. So there's things that happen in this film that hadn't happened in cinema for a long time. For instance, Miss Tarot and Bond being in the bed together. There was that weird law or rule from the censors that, if a man and woman are in bed together, the man's got to have 1 foot on the ground, and the woman's got to have 1 foot behind her head, and there were stupid rules to make it not look sexual. Apparently, if you have a couple in bed, that's why in the 50s and 60s, especially in TV as well, married couples would have separate beds in film and TV. It was so that you never saw a married couple or anybody in bed together. But this film puts them in bed together, and she talks about it on the commentary, how that was a big revolutionary thing. But because it has that light sense of humour and has that kind of easygoing attitude about it, then you're not focused on that. It doesn't seem risque. It's just kind of innocent. But it's fairly full on. Bond's...
I know.
Wow.
Yeah, I noticed it watching it this time around, that's for sure. Young never made many films as popular as his mid-60s work, and he died of a heart attack at the age of 79 in Cannes. This seemed to be his era, wasn't it? He did these films, and that's what his legacy ended up being.
Pretty good, though. I mean, the first 3 Bond films, I mean, they're some of the best, if not the best.
Now, this film was written by Ian Fleming, who wrote the original novel, and the screenplay was credited to Richard Maybaum, Joanna Harwood, and Berkeley Mather. All of the James Bond movies are based in some part upon novels by British author Ian Fleming, and Dr. No is based on his 1958 novel of the same name. An initial draft of the screenplay was rejected because the scriptwriters had made the villain, Dr. No, a monkey. Did you guys know about this at all?
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be a Caucasian man pretending to be an Asian man. It was actually just going to be a monkey.
It's going to be a monkey.
I think so.
Wow. And someone thought that was better? Wow.
We did.
That's quite an exciting concept.
That'd be a weird conversation.
Planet of the Apes.
Sure, what's your plan?
Well, I think he was
The end.
Yeah, he was going to be a talking monkey. So it's
That's so bizarre.
Now, Andrew, the cinematographer for Dr. No is Ted Moore.
Ted Moore, yeah, pretty much the same as the director, really renowned for his Bond work. Did all the films with the director. Well, he did 7 actually. He went on to do some of the Roger Moore's films and finished on The Man with the Golden Gun was the last one he did. So yeah, he's been heavily involved in the Bond series. I mean, what can you say? I mean, he really did set the look of the series. I mean, collaborating with Ken Adams, the production designer, it just has this incredibly sleek, clean, modern look, which has become iconic now. And you know, the films still reference it in the current versions. He's done a couple other major films. Clash of the Titans, I think, was one of his last major films. Before Bond was Day of the Triffids. So he's been a solid, DOP in the movies, but yeah, hasn't really bettered the Bond work.
Yeah, I think it's because of production designer Ken Adam that people believe criminal masterminds operate from the insides of dormant volcanoes. And it's also his fault that we think gold bars are stacked in vast cathedral tall warehouses and that secret agents escape capture by using jetpacks and ejector seats, I think.
I think a lot of hotels in Vegas have modelled the villains' lairs on their lobbies, I think.
So as well.
Andrew's really happy with that observation. He's
just
tickled pink.
like they're unique looking lairs, aren't they? I mean, when you think of a lair, you think of Ken Adams' work.
So let's talk about the iconic cast from Dr. No, starting, of course, with James Bond himself, Sean Connery. So, including Dr. No, Connery made 7 movies in which he played Bond. Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, Diamonds Are Forever, and Never Say Never Again.
Yeah, that's the unofficial Bond film.
That's not actually part of the 23, is that correct?
Never Say Never Again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was made by a different studio and they had someone else
MGM,
decide.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
United Artists had something like that.
They decided that they could use that film because that particular book was co-written by someone else, and so they had permission from the co-writer to then develop it into a film, and I don't know, it was all just a bit dodgy.
The James Bond of the films is a bit different than that portrayed in the original books. It's in this sense that Sean Connery made his portrayal so iconic. Connery embodies the very essence of Bond's cool character. His millionaire-tasting clothing, automobiles, and food and drink define the swinging 60s ideal that matched the world written about in Playboy magazine each month.
I mean, it's classic cinema, isn't it? The image of him in a tuxedo. It was meant to be because it works. That image is just so iconic, and he effortlessly conveys that character and the way he walks through hotel lobbies or out of airports with that theme, the James Bond theme behind him. It's pure cinema.
It says a lot about Connery and the filmmakers with what they did with Bond, in that Fleming from there on in started writing with Connery in mind when he started writing Bond. So he introduced that smart ass nature to the character, and that wasn't there before, and that was all from Dr. No. So,
and it's difficult to pull off, that character of James Bond, who's obviously a hard agent, who's a ruthless killer, but there's times where he has weakness, where he feels pain, and where he's overpowered, or and he's the victim. And Connery just gets that right. He just he shows a bit of weakness in there, and it's convincing. Whereas later Bonds like Pierce Brosnan, it was laughable. When he winces or kind of moans, it's just kind of like some old man who's getting out of a cab. It's just Sean Connery just makes it cool.
There's also, getting back to that idea of, I'm the only one talking about it, Hitchcock idea. Connery is used in this like Hitchcock uses his leading men. He's got a Cary Grant feel. He's got a Jimmy Stewart feel. He owns the scenes, and we are kind of following this guy, and he just does such a great job of it. But he's got that classic Hollywood, that classic cinema feel to him the whole time he's on screen. He's a big presence. He's taller than pretty much everyone else on set, but he's just a really charming leading man in a traditional sense, which I think also helps. It's it's something consistent with cinema at the time, and it still works now. Yeah,
I think that opening scene with Bond in it, so not the opening scene of the film, obviously, but where you're introduced to him has a lot to do with that as well, because he's in his tux, and I mean,
that's a nice way to introduce someone, isn't it?
Every time you wear a tux, you think you're James Bond, or Martin Fry from ABC. Anyone knows
but he
that band. But yeah,
for me, I was almost disappointed when he puts on a normal suit too. Like, it cuts from him being in his tux, because he goes to MI6 in his tux, and then all of a sudden he's in his suit, and you're like, oh.
I find his blue shirt and pants
on the island,
it's a bit off-putting, to be honest.
Pants up to his nipples.
Oh, he is a Harry High Pants. Don't worry about that.
Time.
And also, I was disappointed that he had pajama pants on as well. Not because I wanted to see Sean Connery's bits, but because Bond wouldn't wear pajama bottoms to
no,
bed.
He's not wearing pajama pants.
Nah, I'm with you on that one.
Not a man like Connery.
Nah.
He's not wearing pajama pants.
He's free balling, is that what you're saying?
I didn't want to see his Beretta. Let's put it that way.
Next up, Ursula Andres plays Honey Rider, but the voice is spoken by Nikki Van der Zyl, and the singing voice is by Diana Copeland as well. So
she's a Disney character, isn't she? It's a different voice for everything we needed to do.
Exactly. The character herself, a local shell diver making a living by selling Jamaican seashells to dealers in Miami. 2 weeks before filming was due to start, the part of Honey Rider was still to be cast. The producers then saw a photograph that actor John Derek had taken of his wife, Ursula Andres, and offered her the part without even meeting her. Incredible. Some sources claim that the photograph allegedly featured Andres in a wet T-shirt competition.
Yeah, that's a story I read as well, which isn't consistent across all the stories.
It sounds better than it probably might have actually been.
Like, why would you have a picture of your wife in a wet T-shirt competition for your colleagues to see?
Why wouldn't you?
Well, if it's Ursula Andres, apparently that's what you do.
He's just a proud man.
That's right. Have you seen my wife? Oh,
you would be proud.
They didn't have iPhones in those days, so you had to actually carry the photo around with you, you know?
Some producers have their arms around famous actors, and he's just got his wife on the wall with Norgs out. So it's bizarre, isn't it? Bizarre.
It's very bizarre.
It's bizarre.
Andres, who wasn't overly interested in acting at the time, only agreed to do it when family friend Kirk Douglas read the script and urged her to take it on.
Her entrance is amazing. I mean, obviously, it's one of the key moments in cinema history, but apart from that, she does jack shit.
It is very funny on the commentary. She talks about that entrance, and she doesn't get it. She's there going, it's like, I don't know what everyone got so excited about it. I'm just waiting in the water for the camera to swing across, and then I start walking up, and then I'm there. Why does everyone get so excited about that entrance? It's like,
really?
Because you look
the
amazing.
answer is on Sean Connery's face when he sees it. It's such a great expression he's got in his face.
Connery didn't have to act much.
I don't think so. It's just like
point.
all of his Christmases have come at once, and he's just...
But yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's almost endearing the way she's like, I don't get it, I was just walking out of the water.
Clearly just there for the looks. And she does that really well.
The way that she was cast, she's obviously just there for the looks. I think she's all right. She looks great, and she's not doing anything. You know, I love that bit when they're sitting around Dr. No's dinner table and Connery just sends her off.
There's no point in involving the girl at this stage. She has nothing to do with us. Let her go free. She'll promise not to talk.
No, I won't. I'm staying with you.
I don't want you here. I agree. This is no place for the girl. Take her away.
It's like, cool, let's get rid of her. We don't need... They've written her out of the scene, basically, so that she doesn't have to stink up the rest of the scene.
She looks really good for someone suffering with radiation poisoning, though.
Doesn't she?
Her hair's holding up well, and she looks radiant.
Definitely.
There's that great line when they are about to go through the shower, the anti-radiation shower, and
take off all your clothes.
What's he going to do?
Do as he says. We picked up some radioactive contamination. Do the girl first.
That's brilliant.
Absolutely so chivalrous of him, wasn't it?
Right.
So chivalrous.
Now, Joseph Wiseman plays Dr. No, who doesn't appear, I think, for about an hour and a half into the film.
Yeah, he comes in quite late.
Really late.
Yeah. But he's mentioned all the way through, and he's created this great mysterious kind of character.
It's his voice earlier on, isn't it?
On the interrogation room.
Interrogation room, yeah. Wiseman was picked because of his performance in the 1951 film Detective Story, and the actor had special makeup applied to evoke Doctor knows Chinese heritage.
It's so wrong, isn't it? It's just so inappropriate now to what... And they explain it. He's half German or something and half Chinese. So he's only a half caste, and that's how they can kind of make it seem slightly less racist. I don't know.
But it wasn't that decade when Mickey Rooney was in Breakfast in Tiffany's.
Doing his horrible Japanese photographer character.
It just was that
takes you out of the picture every time now. But at least he's not doing a horrible Chinese accent or anything.
Taking his appearance out of the equation just for a second, though, he's really good when he does come on. He's a great, quite a memorable villain.
He's a good match for Connery. He doesn't do much. There's not a lot of physicality, but he just sits. He's very still and cold and very. It's a really strong presence.
Starts off the whole thing that's carried on in future Bond films as well by having a villain with some sort of like deficiency where he's replaced some appendage with something else. He's got metal hands. Is that what they do here? Is that?
I think,
metal?
Yeah, they infer that his hands have been burnt off or destroyed in the radiation, and now they're metal or they
kind of look like flippers. But
I
love the.
He looks a bit like the Penguin from Tim Burton's Batman Returns.
He's kind of the first bad guy as well with the Grandad Mandarin collar jacket, which is like every bad guy.
It's like Dr. Evil did that in
Dr. Evil, and Blofeld has it, and even Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee. So it's like if you work at David Jones in the suit department and someone comes in and asks for one of those suit jackets, I'd be reporting them.
They are suspect.
Especially if they've got like a dodgy hand or a scar.
You have a Dr. No kind of look. I'm really in.
Half German,
Level
half
3.
Chinese,
Jack Lord plays Felix Leiter, a CIA operative sent to liaise with James Bond while he's in Kingston. This is Bond and Leiter's first time meeting each other on film, and Leiter does not appear in the novel. Leiter returns for many of Bond's other adventures, and in the 2006 reboot of the film series, Casino Royale, Leiter and Bond are seen meeting one another again for the first time. This was Lord's only appearance as Leiter, as he asked for more money and a better billing to return as Leiter in Goldfinger and was subsequently replaced. So this is it. This is pretty much it for him then.
Well, yeah. According to his own website, I read this on. He's dead now, obviously, but apparently he reckons they didn't ask him back because they were worried that people were actually going to see the film for Jack Lord rather than Sean Connery, because Jack Lord was a big name, Hawaii Five-0. And but that's what Jack Lord's people are saying. Well,
Terrence Young
kind of
on the commentary just says that James Bond was too good for Jack Lord and he became too big a star and they couldn't afford him anymore. So.
I mean, he does a good job. Like
he's great.
He's quite charismatic as well.
Not sure why he's wearing ladies' sunglasses for the first 30 minutes of the film. But,
That's true.
I mean, he's the original hipster, isn't he? He
was very cool. He's very cool dresser.
It's also an interesting device to use in the first Bond film to have other operatives that Bond's working with. He's not the solo independent. He's not the loner yet. Yeah, which would be like they use that later on. That Bond kind of cuts himself off a bit from others.
But as a role, the Felix role, it's a little bit thankless, isn't it? It's just kind of comes in and exposition time, and then off he goes. It
doesn't like a cameo, really.
I'll be here for exposition.
Yeah.
I think it's also partly wishful thinking, perhaps on Ian Fleming's part, and British people in general, maybe just hoping like the imperial powers are still there, and
definitely
America's the big guns, but it's really Great Britain that's pulling the shots, and I think that plays a lot, obviously, through all Bond films.
The cast also included a number of actors who would have become stalwarts of the future films, including Bernard Lee, who played Bond Superior M for another 10 films, Bruce.
Wow.
And Lois Maxwell, who played M's secretary Moneypenny in 14 installments of the series.
See, Bernard Lee, I don't know if you've got that in front of you there, Adam, but Bernard Lee, he was only cast within a few days of shooting as well.
Yep.
After everyone else they wanted turned them down.
Interesting, isn't it?
It's just incredible. It just highlights how low budget this film was and how they kind of threw it together as they could.
But also, they didn't know what they had.
No, yeah, exactly.
It's not like you can now sell. How would you sell somebody now? You want to be in a Bond film? They'd be like,
everyone
the first to agree. Everyone would jump on board. So Lee was chosen because of being a prototypical father figure, and Maxwell, after Fleming, thought she was the perfect fit for his description of the character. Maxwell was initially offered a choice between the roles of Moneypenny or Sylvia Trench, and opted for Moneypenny, and she thought the Trench role, which included appearing in immodest dress, was too sexual. So it looks like there's quite a number of people involved in the film, both in front of the camera and behind the camera, who were concerned about the sexual nature of the script.
Well, Maxwell has worked with Terrence Young before. That's how he obviously knew of her work. But she also says in the commentary that she'd be happy to play the secretary if she wasn't playing the cliched button-down secretary. So she didn't want the hair up in a bun and the collar up to her neck and the pencil in the ear kind of look. She wanted to have her hair out and she wanted to be more vivacious. So she actually wanted to play the secretary with a little bit more sexuality than, you know, the cliched character would be. So
how about that scene though as well, where he just
sits on her knee,
just comes up behind her and like, you know, like I mean. Imagine like one of us in our you know day jobs these days just went up to like one of our colleagues and just started acting like that, you know. Like,
it's almost like that's true. Like that's actually one thing that we've actually become a lot more conservative about.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it is a Bond film after all, but like back then, I'm sure that it was a bit looser around the edges, and now you would be killed for doing something like that.
Maxwell talks about too that she and Terence Young developed a backstory for Moneypenny. So the backstory being that, you know, when James Bond first got to the agency, he was just a T-boy or something, and they had some little affair, holiday away, kind of weekend away type thing. And then they both realised if they wanted to, you know, if he wanted to become a 00 agent and she wanted to continue her career, that they couldn't see each other anymore. So, yeah, it is. And then later on, it's more and more inferred that there might have been something in their past together, or there might have been something else going on. And it's a beautiful element to have in a film like this. And it also gives the actors a chance to maybe improvise a line or improvise some business that the director hadn't thought of based on that information.
Anthony Dawson was another character. He played Professor Dent, the Tarantula Man. He's just great. He's got one of those faces that's just such a villainous face. You know, it looks like a Scooby-Doo villain or something.
Oh, it's great, that long face.
With really heavy cheekbones, and you just know that there's something dodgy about him. But he had a great presence in the film. And he's also trying to remember what he was from. And he was the murderer in Dull and for Murder, or the attempted murderer.
There you go.
Apparently he was Blofeld in a few of the Bond films as well.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he comes back as another villain.
Just his hand on a cat, but that's it, and his voice.
He's got beautiful hands.
One of the guys,
hands.
the guy that plays Strangway,
Tony Abbott.
Tim Moxon.
Do you not think he looks like Tony Abbott?
He's got a bit of an Abbott look about him.
He looked like Tony Abbott, yeah.
He was an actor that had moved to Jamaica and retired, and he was driving tractors and crop dusting and stuff. But Terence Young knew him and knew that he lived in Jamaica, so he just cast him because he was already there. And the woman that plays his secretary that gets killed at the start of the film as well, you know, the three blind mice shooter through the window and stuff, she was just the woman that owned that house. And the condition of getting the house for the film was that she wanted to be in the film. And Terence Young's like, oh, well, we got the house, haven't we? And so, yeah, that woman was not an actor, so...
Kind of, now that I think about it, yeah, she really wasn't. I know she only had one line or something, but
it's again one of those bizarre things, because you said to somebody the first Bond film was a low-budget spy thriller, no one would believe you, but it was. It was this. I mean, this is what the franchise was launched off, and it could have failed. Like, it's another one of those great happy accidents where enough went right.
Almost a B movie, really.
It is a B movie. Yeah, $1 million in 1962. It's bugger all.
Do you guys have a favourite scene in this film?
We've only touched on it slightly, but the spider. That's, I mean, as a kid when you watch that bit, you know, it scares. I mean, it probably put a lot of fear into people with spiders, just the idea of a spider being in your bed.
Is that also probably the scene with the most number of cuts in it? How many times do they cut around to make it believe that it's actually Connery with the spider? Because Connery is deathly afraid of spiders. Oh, it was quite clever, actually. We put the pane of glass over Connery and put the spider on the glass that it looks like it. No, it doesn't look like the spider's on Connery at all. It looks like the spider's on a pane of glass that's been held in front. Like, they're like, oh, it looks really effective. It doesn't look... I mean, you know, what else can you do if Connery won't have a spider on him? Yeah, it's a scary sequence.
Well, yeah, for a kid growing up in the UK, and I guess everyone, you know, who doesn't have spiders the size of your hand, that's a scary scene. But like when he watching it now, when you know, he tells the professor to, you know, this is what you'll use, and the camera pans out, and it's like it's a huntsman in a box.
I found that quite comical and kind of ridiculous when I watched it this time. I'm just like, it's like, you've got to take care of him. You must kill him. You must, you know, remove him from the planet. Take this spider. It's like, I don't know, maybe a gun or a bomb or a tractor. I don't like. There's so many things that'd be more effective. And then what happens? He jumps out of bed, flicks it on the ground, and then kills it with a shoe. It's not even a particularly strong spider. Like,
it's anticlimax, isn't it?
So bizarre. It's like, oh no, spider, it's dead. Okay, next.
Boy, do they play on that scene with the music.
Oh, it's heavy. It's heavy-handed.
Every time I kill a cockroach, I have that music in my head. Makes me feel like Bond.
Do you have a favourite scene, Bruce?
I love the car chase, the big black hearse chasing the little sunbeam around that Connery's driving, and the You know, I love that the crane's there and he ducks under the crane in his sports car, and it's just awesome film, car chase. Everything's just cliche, but I love it. It's beautiful. I love that little moment.
Andrew?
Yeah, there's just a really subtle moment when he's about to dispatch the professor in the hotel room, and he tries to shoot him. The professor grabs the gun and he's got no bullets left, and he just, that great fucking line was just like...
Mr. Smith & Wesson, and you've had your 6.
Bang.
That's great.
That is just the pinnacle of what James Bond is. It's just...
Apparently that line
impeccably
into
done.
the vernacular in the UK, kids would use that, you've had your 6, as well, just as a phrase meaning, you know, you've had your lot. So
It's the coolest line in the
it's such
film.
a great
That's
line.
great.
Yeah.
I do like when the car goes over the cliff and it's...
How did it happen? I think they were on their way to a funeral.
Because you can tell the guy that's like...
I know. It's
people
kind
might,
of,
like, we think James Bond's awesome,
Yeah,
but all
yeah.
those little incidental people must just think, oh, son of a
it
bitch.
is kind of weird, that moment, in that they're the 3 blind mice, so these 3 assassins in Jamaica that have killed all these people, and then just, oh, okay, they're gone. They're dead. Okay, next. Like, it's just really throwaway, casual, I've killed the 3 biggest assassins in Jamaica. No, well, they're just gone. That's all right.
And make sure he doesn't get away when he's when he pulls up in the
Yes.
car.
Shades of Commando in that
Yeah.
line. I must, if we would have mentioned that again.
It's always worth mentioning Commando.
This is the first Bond film that we've looked at. So a Bond women counter after Dr. No, 3. So we're going to.
He slept with 3 women. Oh, yeah, of course, the French.
There's the golf playing Sylvia Trench.
Yep.
Miss Tarot and Honey Ryder.
Yeah.
So there's 3 in this film, but he did miss out on the photographer at the bar.
Freelance.
Yeah, freelance.
Yeah.
Freelance. He did miss out on that one. So we're going to keep a counter here,
He
guys.
slipped. He slipped.
3 from this first movie. So we'll add to that as we go along.
So 3 women that Bond has slept with so far, and how many times in 15 or 16 episodes have we mentioned Back to the Future?
It's
Does
got
that
to be
count?
early 60s.
Early
now, I
60s.
think,
Yeah,
right?
right. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's just worth establishing that.
Nicely put in there. Love your work. The opening title sequence, the iconic shooting at the screen with the whole gun barrel sequence, that whole like colourful, like, you know, all those lights. The main theme, which transforms into reggae music before transforming again into 3 blind mice.
Not quite perfected yet.
Not perfected, but already it's just establishing like what, you know, how important a main title sequence is to a Bond film.
An aesthetic, yeah. There's definitely like a really strong style coming through in the opening titles. It's very, I mean, compared to what we've seen, it's refreshingly simplistic, but it's quite kind of charming in a way.
This film has a hell of a lot of dissolves.
Yeah, right.
Which obviously signifies passing of time, but it's a very old-fashioned filmmaking technique, which you saw a lot in films from this era.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore when you think about it. Think about modern cinema. You don't see it that often.
Yeah, it's usually used for that specific use of passing of time, really, and that's, you know, once or twice in a film, really, isn't
There
it?
are parts in this film where there's like dissolve after dissolve after dissolve. Like,
Well,
it's
yeah, apparently-
That's him sleeping with women, and then they can't show it, so they have to dissolve. And yeah, I think you'll find it happens a lot more as the Bond
as the
series goes along. Yeah.
progresses. That's right. So
Well, the DOP and the editor, specific use of motion, like they really wanted to keep the images moving and the editing moving.
Yeah, the editor says on the commentary that he wanted, these films needed a sense of pace because you don't want the audience thinking things over too much. You just want to get them onto the next thing before they've had a chance to think about the first thing, and that was the idea of just
And that's
really
it was quite a modern
very
sensibility.
modern, especially when you look at, like, if you look at spy films from around this era, they are long shots or long takes, and they're played out, and even the Hitchcock stuff from this period, that's the big differentiator, I think, is that it's very fast paced and very tight editing.
the iconic reveal of Bond for the first time. Once Connery says his line, Monty Norman's Bond theme plays and creates a link between music and character. That's something that just sticks from then all the way up to now.
I admire your courage, Miss...
Trench. Sylvia Trench. I admire your luck, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
What do you guys think of this sequence?
I'll go first because this is the first time I kind of realised the whole James Bond is him basically just mocking Sylvia
Yep.
Trench. I never picked up on that until now, and just how iconic that's become.
Because I've never seen the film and I watched it now.
Right.
So I said, right. So this iconic line, he's actually just mimicking what Trench said.
Taking a mick, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
And they obviously it delivered that well. They stuck with it for, well, the majority of Bond films, I think, from there on in.
Yeah, it's essentially a joke. Terence Young talks about the timing as well by putting the cigarette lighter in the middle of the line, made it more comedic, because originally Connery just delivered it, James Bond, with no break. And he said, put the pause in between, increases the parody, and made it a much funnier joke. So, yeah, Terence Young was excited when people actually laughed there, because it is supposed to be funny.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the introduction of James Bond, it's the perfect way to kind of introduce such a powerful character and a charismatic character.
Dr. No introduced the many recurring themes and features associated with the suave and sophisticated agent. The distinctive James Bond theme, which we've touched upon, the gun barrel sequence, his initial mission briefing with M, Bond girls, the criminal organisation Spectre, narrow escapes, Bond's luck and skill, his signature Walther PPK and the license to kill, overambitious villains, and lots of henchmen and allies. It's all really set up in this film.
Yeah,
for the entire series.
Yeah, and that's what makes it great is just it's not quite perfected yet. So you're just seeing the makings of what will become a great series.
Dr. No also establishes the oft-repeated association, in this case Project Mercury, between the Bond series and the US manned space program, which would be repeated with Project Gemini in You Only Live Twice, Project Apollo in Diamonds Are Forever, and the Space Shuttle in Moonraker, not to mention several outer space sequences involving fictional satellite programs in GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, and Die Another Day. So, again, it's really starting something, this film.
I've got a feeling all the ones you mentioned before, the Brosnan films, the bad guys are all wearing those granddad collars again. Because even in Moonraker, he's got one of them as well. Like, it's just a...
It's where all the villains shop.
Yeah, I know. They're all getting their suits and then going to IKEA and just like getting all this stuff delivered to like an island or under a volcano. Like
maybe I could take over the world now with my suit.
I've never worn one of those jackets, but do they give you an immense increased...
Must do.
Why is Dr. No toppling moon rockets?
It's not really explained, is it? Just to be an ass, isn't he?
Yeah, the only explanation the film offers is Dr. No's anger at the US for rejecting his services and the presence of men in red China uniforms in the background of the nuclear reactor. Another possible motive, given Jamaica's proximity to Cuba, is to trigger war between the US and that nation by framing the Cubans for sabotage. That's apparently the official explanation there.
Well, it was all
I
around
really thought about it when I was watching the film, but...
Well, it was all happening around the Cuban Missile Crisis, wasn't it? So I guess it was topical.
Trying to make it something topical and relevant. This is what Ian Fleming thought of this first Bond film. It is said that he didn't like it when he saw it at the beginning. Reported to say that it was dreadful, simply dreadful. Some reports say that he wanted Cary Grant to play Bond.
Oh, there you go.
And other reports say he wanted Roger Moore, who would obviously later portray Bond in a record 7 straight Bond movies. In the end, however, he admitted it was hard to imagine anyone but Connery in the role, so much so that You Only Live Twice, it is revealed that Bond had a Scottish father. Incidentally, Dr. No and From Russia with Love are the only James Bond movies that Fleming saw before his death in 1964. Just a little bit of trivia here, guys. Although Dr. No was the first movie made in the Bond series, it was actually Fleming's 6th novel in the series. So some of the differences in the book have to do with the fact that there were 5 other books previous to this story. All the sets and furniture were slightly smaller than they would be in reality so that Bond would look larger.
Oh, there you go.
Just wanted to make his screen presence even bigger.
Even bigger. That's bizarre. I mean, the sets are quite sparse in this film, and that's because of the budget, but very effective. In the Casino, for instance, Ken Adams, he was saying that he had bugger all money to work with, so he chose big chandeliers and those big French windows, and he tried to do what he could with his limited resources, and for that, I think all the sets look incredible. So
there's in the Spider room, that was a classic example where I think he had 450 pounds left, so he just had to use his instincts to make something that was interesting, and that's probably one of the most iconic sets that everyone remembers. Is just that great hole in the ceiling there.
Oh, I love that. Oh, you mean on the island? When the professor's getting the spider.
Yeah, the spider in the box.
That is one of the most beautiful shots.
Minimal
in the film.
set, but it's just so dynamic.
You get the light coming in through that grate. And,
it's so
had
good. No money.
It's like, I've got nothing, that'll do.
Yeah.
A Francisco de Goya painting of the Duke of Wellington, stolen in 1961, is found on an easel next to the stairs in Dr. No's dining area. This is why Bond stops to notice it as he passes it while going up the stairs. It was recovered in 1965. It's a really nice little touch.
Yeah, apparently it got a good laugh when it was released originally, when it was relevant. So it had just been in the news the year before, and then it's in this film.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool.
So let's talk a little bit about the DVD and Blu-ray releases of Dr. No. And I know that, Brose, you just picked up Dr. No on Bluray in preparation.
The transfer is beautiful. Who watched the Blu-rays? Okay, did you watch it as well?
Yeah, I
did.
Yep.
It is spectacular. This film is so colourful and bright and beautiful. And after watching it on TV for years and watching VHS versions or pan scan and bullshit, to watch the full widescreen, just beautiful transfer. It's what you want. If you invest, this is only a $20 Blu-ray or an $18 or $19, whatever. This is what you want when you buy a classic film. You just want to buy it and you want it to look great. That's all you want. And is that too much to ask? Sometimes it appears it is. But yeah, I loved it. I think it looked fantastic. One thing I noticed though with Dr. No, the Foley, all the audio effects are a bit crap. Like at one point they get out of a car and the two car doors close and it's the exact same sound effect for both doors, except one's a little bit further away from the camera and they're like, it took me out of the movie a few times. Some footsteps just sounded a bit too...
There's some missing Foley.
And there's stuff missing all over the place as well, yeah.
Yeah.
So the audio design's not great on this film, but it looks spectacular.
The one that we're speaking about is the 2012 MGM Blu-ray release, released by itself, but also in a huge box set with all of the following Bond films, the 50 Years of Bond set.
Has anyone got the box set of all the films? No. I've been tempted a couple of times because it was, I think at duty free when I went overseas once, it was quite cheap and... It's tempting to have all the Bond films.
Oh, of course it is.
And by the time in 10 years' time after we've gone through them all on Real Chat, then I'll have them all, I guess. But it's really, really tempting to have all of them on Blu-ray would be great.
On the Blu-ray, they pretty much just reissued the supplemental package from the previous DVD release with some really good features on it, highlighted by an audio commentary, Brose. Have you checked this out?
Yeah, this is not a great audio commentary. And
so who's on it?
Terence Young's on it. Ursula Andres is there for a bit. The woman that plays Taro she shows up. Adams, the production designer, is there. There's a whole mess of people, and there's also a host. There's a guy he's from the Ian Fleming Foundation or the Ian Fleming bullshit, and they've just edited together interviews and bits and pieces from over the years. So he'll come on and say, and here's Terence Young from an interview in 1974 talking about blah, blah, blah. And then they'll play that bit. And here's Ursula Andres on Terence Young. And so then it'll be her talking about the director and then her talking about Sean Connery. Audio clips they use aren't necessarily relevant to the vision that's on. There's nothing organic about it. And the audio clips they're using are quite safe, but also just a bit boring. That being said, there was a commentary released by Criterion when they first released the Laserdisc, which was then withdrawn from sale and banned by the Ian Fleming estate.
Why?
Well, it's hard to tell now, but you can find it online now, and I listened to about 20 minutes of it as well as the other commentary, and it's much better. The interviews are more loose. It's a similar kind of style. Like, it's still hosted by someone. It's by some guy from Criterion, and then it's using audio clips, but the audio clips are more relaxed and a bit more loose. Some of the comments are a bit fancy-free. The guy, for example, the guy who owns the bar or the club in Jamaica, someone on this commentary refers to him having ties to organised crime. It's a little bit more relaxed than the more current commentary. I enjoyed it a lot more. It was just a little bit looser and a little bit more fun.
I wonder why it was banned, though.
There's different theories, and it could also be that the Ian Fleming Foundation didn't want anything negative being said about him or casting any negativity across the franchise. They're very controlling about the legacy of Bond and Ian Fleming. So
you wouldn't recommend this commentary? The
one off the Blu-ray is not great, and I got bored. But the one from the Criterion, if you can dig it up, it's online all over the place, and just sync it and play it. It's fantastic. I'm going to go back and watch the rest of that one.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
If you're a Bond fan, you probably already got that 50 Years of Bond set. But
exactly.
If you haven't, picking up on this 2012 Blu-ray is the way to go. That's for sure. Andrew, let's talk a little bit about Monty Norman's score and the iconic music from.
Let's talk more about Monty Norman's name. That is fantastic. I'm Monty Norman. He sounds like he should show up in a bloody Fireman Sam.
Sounds like a Willy Wonka bar or something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Monty Norman.
No, I just hurt my tooth on a hazelnut in a Monty Norman. That's a great name. Tell us about Monty Norman.
Monty. Well, yeah, it's another iconic score, really, that we're getting into. I mean, it's bizarre because this is, as being the first film, obviously the music hasn't really clicked in yet for the character, except for that main theme, which is obviously everything. And the rest of the score is really just kind of island music or Jamaican or kind of tiki kind of music, which is kind of great and fun and adds to the kind of the location. But in terms of the thematic score, it's really a bit weak, I think, in this film.
I thought so.
Yeah, I mean, because we know once John Barry takes over how good it gets. Some of the action music and suspense music is a little bit well, obvious. And the tarantula scene is a perfect example. It's just a bit.
Hits.
It's a little bit cheap, but I mean, yeah, everything's based around that main theme. When that theme comes on, the film comes alive. The character comes alive. It just adds so much to that cool aspect of the film.
Here's the thing: did John Barry actually compose the theme?
That's the great mystery.
Yep.
It's been officially announced in court that he didn't. It's been Monty Norman has been given the credit for the theme.
There was a thing that popped up online last year where they played. It must have been. Was it Monty Norman's had recorded that in another song? Is that what
Yes.
that case was about? And they play that song, and then it gets to the bit which is the James Bond theme, and then the song continues on after that. It must have been the evidence they used.
Yeah, I mean, they've broken it down. Like, they had several court cases over it. It's obviously a big deal. And, yeah, broken it down into every little section of the theme. And, yeah, basically it was resulted that John Barry did the arrangement, not the composer of the theme. So the composer gets all the royalties of the score. The arranger just gets his original fee, which is pretty massive when it happens to be the James Bond theme. So yeah, that's what the official announcement was. I mean, John Barry obviously has gone on to be the composer, and he's done a beautiful job with future scores. But yeah, the theme is Monty Norman, so we've got to thank Monty for that.
And we thank you for your wonderful name.
There was an 18-track soundtrack release. Now, I haven't heard it, but in looking through the track listing, there's a lot of sort of inspired by tracks there. Am I right?
First of all, it's a great sounder to put on when you're having a dinner party. I'll put it up. It's got this lovely kind of twee, tiki sound to it, which is good fun. But in terms of actually in the film, you wouldn't even notice it, I don't think. It just sounds like a radio's playing music in the background. So, yeah, it's a strange initial James Bond score, just nothing like you would expect. But, the James Bond theme, obviously a huge success, became a top 10 hit in the UK at the time, had multiple people covering it. It's now obviously an iconic piece of music, not just within film, but as a piece of music. And, yeah, it's obviously John Barry has taken it, and that's one of the weaknesses of the score. Is one of the brilliant things about the theme is how John Barry would merge it into the thematic scenes in the films, but Monty Norman doesn't really get that happening in this one. It's kind of a little bit clunky, and it sometimes weaves in some of the notes of the melody, but generally it's just a bit it's just not as strong.
Are any of his cues on the soundtrack, or are they left off?
A lot of the actual thematic score is missing. It's mostly the songs that he composed, which is strange. There's a piece of music when, spoiler alert, Dr. No is dying, which I know, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I've seen this. Okay, that's fine. It's fine.
And that's reused in From Russia with Love when the helicopter crash happens. So they recycle that for some reason in that film.
It's a weird decision.
So it's all over the shop, the release, really. It's more about pop songs than actual score. If you're having a dinner party, you'll have a great
Recommended
time.
for a dinner party, gotcha.
Can I touch on something just with the music?
Yeah.
The Underneath the Mango Tree.
Yeah, of course.
Which was written for the film.
Yeah.
Well, I did my research, and the word boolaloop. Do I have to sing it? I'm not going to sing it.
Yeah.
Underneath the mango tree.
Play this bit of music.
My love and me doing boolaloop or something like that. It's one of the lyrics, and I thought, what's boolaloop? Maybe getting it on. I searched it on the internet, and the only thing I could come up with was Urban Dictionary. And according to this, the term boolaloop is a term used in the song Underneath the Mango Tree in reference to having wild pig sex with chains and whips. So,
there you go.
There you go, boolaloop.
There's your answer.
That's what you do. The other thing too with that song is that was originally going to play over the opening credits, and that was going to be the James Bond theme. And then Terence Young's like, no, it's not. And then they wrote the other thing.
It's strange, though, the opening title, we know it so well now. And they repeat it twice in the opening, and where it usually finishes and leads into the film, it then kicks off again. And then it goes into some Jamaican music, and there's this weird silhouettes of people dancing, and then it merges into the Three Blind Mice song. It's just this it's just a very awkward, slightly awkward opening to the film, and you kind of...
3 completely different pieces of music.
Yeah, it's just bang, 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 and then into the film, you're like, well, what's going on?
Yeah.
See, I think Underneath the Mango Tree would have worked in that opening sequence had they had silhouettes of like chains and pigs, and
And a monkey as well.
Are you going to touch on the Island Records connection?
Yeah, that's worth having a quick chat about.
Please go.
So I've forgot the guy's name. It's Blackwell is his surname. He's the location scout. So he's in Jamaica already. I believe he's a friend of Ian Fleming, and he it was the scout for most of the locations for the film set when it was set in Jamaica. He's the guy who found Bob Marley and went on
Grace
to find
Jones?
U2. I don't know if you've heard of them. Band.
U2.
No, nothing. Yeah, U2. So yeah, that's just a little music history lesson.
Good one.
That's
Cool.
right.
Thanks, Matt.
I don't know his full name, but there you go.
It's
a
a-
Boolaloop. Well, let
a
me
little
tell you
music-
something.
It's a little music lesson that Matt could do well to learn.
Yes, exactly.
Just in regards to, there's not a huge amount in regards to alternate versions or anything like that, although for the UK cinema version, the BBFC made cuts to reduce the number of gunshots fired by Bond at Dent from 6 to 2, to remove blows and a knee kick during Bond's fight with the chauffeur, and to replace Dr. No's line, "I'm sure she will amuse the guards," with "the guards will amuse her." All releases feature this version, and the footage may no longer exist.
When Bond kills Professor Kent, is it? It's really weird. Isn't that kind of weird that he kills him? He doesn't.
Very cold-blooded.
Like, he doesn't need to. The guy's got no bullets left, and Terence Young explains it by just saying that James Bond had just watched himself get murdered, so therefore he's allowed to kill this guy. It's like some weird anti-self-defense thing. But that really stuck out to me, that he doesn't...
You think the number one thing would be to, as a spy, would
Apprehend?
be to get hold of him,
And he hasn't even finished interrogating him yet. He's about to tell him something.
Exactly, yeah.
And then he just shoots him because he'd reached for his gun. And he knew that there were no bullets left. That really... Yeah, I got over it real quick.
I mean, I read the similar thing where they're saying he's basically very angry about, a fellow agent in Strangways being shot, and it's like, one for the team, take him out. But
it's an interesting
as
moment.
a spy, you'd
Another interesting moment is, what the hell do they do with Ursula at the very end when she
She's
gets
on that
taken
boat
away?
ramp?
She's on the ground, and she's kind of all cuffed and...
She's have you got that there?
Yeah, originally the ending had Honey being attacked by crabs when Bond rescues her.
She wouldn't be the first person that slept with Bond that ended up getting attacked by crabs.
The crabs moved too slowly to be really menacing, and the ending was reshot without the crabs. Apparently, still photographs of the earlier ending can be seen on the DVD or the Blu-ray, maybe in some stills gallery or something like that.
It looks like she's getting a suntan or something, and
It's
then
so bizarre.
James Bond rescues her for some...
Yeah.
It's very strange.
I think it was just something that they had to do when they realised, we can't do this whole thing with the crabs. Yeah, I'm not sure, but...
These crabs aren't working out.
Yeah. During the Dent execution, most TV prints omit Bond's second gunshot into Dent's back. Some foreign prints omit the scene entirely. That is pretty forceful when he does that. You see it in the film. He just goes and shoots him in the back.
Bang, you're dead.
Yeah. Some TV prints shorten the opening scenes to speed up Bond's introduction. So this is interesting. In particular, a scene featuring a fellow agent arriving at the casino in search of Bond is cut, and the card game with Sylvia Trench begins just prior to the famous James Bond introduction, omitting the lengthy lead-up in the original.
It makes sense. For TV, it makes sense that they're going to try and get Bond
Makes
on
sense,
soon,
but I think the lead-up's really good.
It is great. It's ruining the film by doing that, but you can understand why they'd make that choice.
Alternate versions of some scenes were filmed for European markets, including a somewhat more revealing scene involving the character of Miss Tarot.
There you go. There you go.
The more revealing, was that shot for Japan, or the Japanese always had the more gory, racy. Yeah,
they got the
versions.
most extreme versions of film.
Yeah.
Is it true we're going to do a future podcast on Real Chat where Matt just lists his top 10 tits out sequences out of films?
I was actually meaning gore.
Oh, you're
as
talking
a horror
gore.
fan,
Okay.
yeah.
The interesting thing too, though, the difference between the books and the films, and I've not read the books, but in the book, when Ursula Andres comes up from the water, in the book she's naked except for the belt with the knife on it, and Trench is naked when Bond comes home. She's playing golf in his house naked. So yeah, Fleming just had bloody nudity everywhere, but not in the film versions.
Okay. Brose, collectibles. What can people spend their money on?
Oh, they can spend their money on everything. Traditionally, Corgi did the replicas of the Bond vehicles and things, and the Corgi line is amazing. So good that I think in the 90s they re-released it, reissued it. But the point of the Corgi replicas is that they have all the moving parts and, the jet, the bloody cannons are firing, and, the white car out of Moonraker turns into the sub, and but the sunbeam from this film doesn't do anything. So I don't know if you can buy the crane so you can just zip it under the crane arm a few times. But anyway, traditionally Corgi did those back in the 60s. There's another company, Gilbert, I think they are, also did replicas, including the Dr. No's tank, the dragon tank thing, and a boat, one of the boats. It's bizarre.
Like the rowboat?
No, like the
speedboat,
the boat from later on, from Dr. No's Island. It's like
when they pick them up at the end.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird thing.
That's what it looks like.
But you had the Gilbert. They did steel figures as well.
Yeah.
Like the old figures you get for a railway set or something. There was a Dr. No in that. You had Dr. No and Goldfinger.
Yeah, and I had Odd Job.
Odd Job as well. Was there a Bond? Did you have a Bond?
I had Bond. Yeah, he had the white jacket. So I'm guessing that's the Roger
Oh,
Moore.
Roger Moore
Or
Bond.
maybe it was it was Goldfinger.
Comes out of the diver's
jacket,
suit.
yeah.
So Gilbert released those. And then more recently, you can get the proper replicas of the kind of 143 scale replicas of the vehicles from the film as well. So you can pick up again, Dr. No's tank, you can get the Black Hearse, you can get the Sunbeam, you can get all those vehicles as well. Starting that love affair that Bond has with cars. And they're not a big deal in this film, but they obviously become a big deal. So it's nice people like having those bits and pieces. In the 90s, there were these really horrible kind of 10-inch figures released, and they are absolutely woeful. They are horrible. Something's really bad when the name of it is... This is the name of it. It's the exclusive premiere limited edition collector's series James Bond figures. It's like, how many more ways do you want to tell people these are going to be worth something when they're just absolute shit? Like the likenesses are awful, and they're kind of the Dr. No... First of all, looks about 30 kilos heavier than Dr. No is, but then his hands are just these horrible molded hands that are just kind of closed in, and anyway, they're just horrible pieces of shit, so stay away from those. But you'll be happy to know that Sideshow Collectibles have released a 12-inch Sean Connery Bond from Dr. No, and it looks sensational. The likeness is spot on, and the full cloth tuxedo and everything looks great.
Bloody Sideshow, they're awesome.
Oh, they're unbelievable. They're so good. If I had money, I'd have so many of those, it wouldn't be fun.
You can even pull its hair out and put it across your your wardrobe and stuff in case you're worried someone's been in there.
But
I'm sure there's plenty of stuff in your wardrobe you don't want people to go and see.
My wife's clothes. What?
You've got 10 hairs across those two doors.
You guys are horrible. But yeah, I mean, collectibles have been released with Bond films since Dr. No. Like it's an important part of the film. So yeah.
Now, in regards to the awards, there were no Academy Awards or nominations for Dr. No. Although at the Golden Globes in 1964, Ursula Andres won a Golden Globe for Most Promising Newcomer Female.
A male-orientated jury, or
just there were so many things that could have got at least a nomination or award for Dr. No, and it went to her.
Yeah, it was a great entrance.
It's just one of the greatest entrances in cinema history, really. That bikini has been parodied and has been replicated. You can't deny it. Obviously we feel sexist looking back on it now, but that's an important part of the Bond franchise, and it's the reason Bond women continue throughout the series as well. She's as much as Connery launched the franchise for Bond, she's launched Bond women for the same franchise.
That's true. The Rotten Tomatoes website certifies Dr. No fresh with a score of 98%, 46 positive and only 1 negative. So I had to go and have a look at it.
Who is he? Who's the negative Nancy?
Austin Kennedy of SIN magazine in October 2012. So this is quite a recent review. The film geek in me wants to praise it, but the film critic in me wants to expose its flaws. I still have a soft spot for it, but if I'm being truly honest, it's kind of lackluster. Trying to make something out of nothing.
Yeah.
Who was that by?
Austin Kennedy of SIN magazine.
Lackluster
Austin
review.
Powers, he's probably more a fan of that film, and
I just think it's just saying something for the hell.
So let's go around his house and bash him. I think that's what you're saying, Adam.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I just don't agree with that at all.
Roger Ebert wouldn't say that.
I reckon we put a spider in his bed.
And an IMDb score of 7.3 out of 10.
That's pretty good.
Which is pretty good as well. So let's just finish this off with our traditional 5-star review system and traditionally I'll start over here with Andrew. Andrew.
So many traditions on this podcast for such a young podcast, but Andrew doing the first review is tradition.
I'm going to ring it in. It's as we've discussed, it's the first chapter in a obviously ongoing, epically long series of great films and some not so great. And it's a refreshing film, which just starts with a fascinating character. So really, I think it's a really good film. It's not one of my favourite Bond films. I think it is just still finding its feet. Connery just carries this film and makes it a classic. So, yeah, wildly enjoyable film nevertheless. It's still got all those elements that we love in the series, but I do think, further on in the series they really do kind of give it a bit more finesse, and there's some better set pieces, and obviously the score, the John Barry score comes into it, and it's just the stronger elements come in through later on. But yeah, it's a very, very good film. I would recommend it, first of all. Of course, you've got to start at the beginning. I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5.
Good one. Brose.
Yeah, it's nice to go back to the start and see the humble beginnings. It's a really nicely crafted film. It's got the feeling of a low-budget film, but the charisma of Connery just pulls it through. And this is the film that launched 20 films. Is this the biggest franchise in cinema history, James Bond? There's no other films with more entries than James Bond. There's no film series that's influenced pop culture possibly more than James Bond or equal to James Bond. He started a whole industry. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. It's a low budget film. It has its shortcomings, but it's a rollicking good time. It's just a really fun, loose film. And compared to later on when Bond kind of gets a bit too serious or gets a bit too silly, this one sits really well in the middle there and just kind of is having a good time, but it tells a good story. Yeah.
Okay, and recommend it?
Yeah, definitely recommend it.
All right. Matt.
Look, I'm a big fan of espionage films. I really like the Ipcris Files. I really like that film because it's quite accessible. It's quite real. Like it's people sat around desks, and I really like Dr. No for that as well. Like there's no gadgets or anything. I do love that about James Bond anyway, but this one in particular doesn't have any of that. It's quite real, but overall within the gamut of Bond films, I'd give it probably 3 stars. But yeah, it's a great fun film.
Great. Okay. Now I'm going to give it, like you, Andrew, 3.5 out of 5. One of the things I do love about Bond films is that you'll see things that you'll never see in other movies. Where else but a Bond film would a half Chinese, half German man with compulsive paranoia about radiation and with metal hands living on an island with a dragon mobile? You know what I mean? What other film series?
I have not seen that before.
Exactly. It's fun and thoroughly enjoyable, and sets the stage for the films that have followed over the past 5 decades. And how often can you say that as well? And I think that's the thing about Bond. It's just so iconic. Sean Connery sets the stage for his iconic turn as the legendary spy and delivers a performance that has defined James Bond for almost 50 years. No matter whether you like this film or not, in the end, if you don't get that hair sticking up on the back of your neck feeling the first time you see Sean Connery say Bond, James Bond, then I really feel sorry for you. It's not in touch with film history. It's not perfect. It's got a lot of shortcomings, and a lot of it seems quite dated, this film, to me as well. But it's a really, really good start to the Bond series. And quite simply, Sean Connery is James Bond. So if you want to see where that all started, check out this film. It's what it's all about. It's classic cheese-filled, and it's very enjoyable, but it's just what the doctor ordered. So highly recommended.
See what you did there? No. That's sorry, Dr. No.
That's it. Yeah. So that pretty much wraps up our first Bond retrospective here, guys. So thanks very much for coming out and discussing it with us. Only 22 to go, and by the time we get to the last one, there'll probably be another couple as well.
That's true, and McCaskill will be a shell of his former self by the time we get through 23 Bond films. It's
probably have lost my hearing and possibly my senses.
He's already balking at subsequent Jurassic Park entries, and wow, there's 22 more Bond films, Andrew. 22 more!
Nice leeway there, Brose, as well, for the fact that our next episode we're actually trying something new. We're trying the double, the Lost World Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park 3 in the same episode.
I think that's all the respect they deserve.
Me too. So we're going to give that a crack. So we just have to talk Andrew into appearing on that episode.
Well, he's just got to find some enthusiasm to actually watch Jurassic Park 2. And I can understand his pain. I understand where he's coming from. It's a difficult task.
All will be revealed.
It's like all of us in that episode will be doing the assignment. So...
Which I'm doing next week.
You are. Right? Adam is doing it next week.
Annie.
Right?
And then I'm just going to find...
Have you watched it yet?
No, not yet.
Oh,
not yet.
It's coming.
Not yet.
Can't wait to listen to that one.
So, Matt and Michael are the two remaining
Victims.
victims. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks very much, guys. Tune in next week for The Lost World, Jurassic Park, and Jurassic Park 3.
Double.
The double. And yeah, we'll speak to you all soon. Thanks very much.
See you later, guys.
Good night.
Bye.
Stay in touch with us by visiting realchat.com.au. Check us out on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at realchatpodcast, Instagram real_chat_podcast. And if you haven't already, catch up with past episodes and subscribe to new episodes on iTunes.